Okay, right. Welcome to April's Inspire Library Book Club. I'm Claire, I'm hosting today. We've been reading Summerwater by Sarah Moss. It was published in August 2020, which it was written before the pandemic, but published during the time of the pandemic. And it does have a sense of foreboding, I think. And one of the opening lines is, there won't be a plane this summer or next, which is Justine, a character in the book who's worrying over family or Brexit issues, but it feels a little bit kind of reflective of that period of time. Sarah Moss has written quite a few other books, most notably Ghost Wall, which for me had a similar feel, I think, of that sense of foreboding throughout. Anyway, interested what you all thought of it. Anne, you posted a question, so I didn't know if we wanted to start with your question. Would you like me to read it out, or have you got that to hand?
You can read it out if you want, it's fine.
So you're interested in hearing the views of the structure of the novel, 12 different angles in slowly progressing the story, with very short pieces between each one. So I just thought it was
an interesting structure. I was happy with it. I just wondered generally what people felt about it. Yeah, so I won't go on about it. So I was interested to know what other people thought about it.
I can offer a quick view.
Definitely, hush.
Yeah. I got slightly irritated by the sort of little bits in between, because I was just kind of like, yeah, because it's a short book. I felt like I wanted to read it quickly and get to the end of this thing that I knew was going to happen, whatever it was that was going to happen. And the little bits in between, I kind of like, oh, come on, get through that, and then just get back to the story. And so I found it quite disruptive, but I know it was intended, but I found it a bit disruptive.
Yeah, I thought that opening piece with Justine was really good, and I thought it got off to a really good start. I liked the way the character was drawn, and some very sort of relatable problems she's facing with the husband and stuff. I thought that was really well written, and obviously the author introduced a bit of jeopardy with the fluttering heart, and I thought that was all good. So I thought it got off to a really good start, but I did feel that, as Anne is perhaps suggesting, that structure of a mixture of monologues and third-person narration of different characters did make it rather disjointed, and I didn't feel there was really much of a plot going on. So whilst I liked most of the characters, some were a bit cliched, I thought, I just felt it didn't really quite add up to a narrative. There wasn't enough story in it for me.
I found it a multi-layered novel, and I did like the references to the natural world, because I found them very reflective, and I'm thinking, why are these here? And I suppose it helped me with my multitude of questions that were forming in my mind as I continued to read. But again, the style, I found myself making notes because we heard a little bit about a couple of characters, and then it jumped to someone else. And I had to write a few notes to make sure that I was keeping a hold on all of the threads.
And how did you feel about it?
I personally felt the style was appalling.
Right.
I can't say any more. You really do have to make notes, and so the author is not helping you read her book. I thought it got off to a marvellous start. I liked the runner, and then suddenly there's another character. Okay, I can cope with 2, possibly cope with 3, but when it got to all these other people coming in, I really struggled. And at one point I put the book down and thought, why am I wasting my time? And then I decided I was going to come to the book club. So I did read it to the end, but I certainly wouldn't recommend her as an author. I'm sorry. Of all the books we've read in the book club, this is probably by far the worst. And I can confirm my sister has also read the book. She got it out and she agrees with me. So there's the end to it as far as I'm concerned. I would not, if I gave it 1 star, she would be very lucky. It's the style. There's no need for that. She's trying to be pretentious and trying to be intellectual by getting all these people's different views. Well, I'm sorry. That's in order to work out what's going on in the book. You've got to read it 2 or 3 times. You've got to go back to discover that the little girl picked up the cigarette lighter early on, and then that's going to be used later on. So it's not an easy read, and from my point of view, not a particularly enjoyable read. I'm sorry. Here we are.
Everyone's got a different view.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with everything that everybody's saying, and they probably said it a lot more politely than I did. But in fact, it's not an easy read. It's not a book I would recommend to somebody. But there are obviously people who probably like her style, who would go away and enthuse very much over her books. We're each to our own, I suppose.
I can understand what you're saying, Claire, and I fully understand why you felt like that. That there wasn't really a protagonist. There was no character who was sort of you could follow because it was switching around. So I think I just adjusted to that, and I just thought, okay, well, this is a different sort of novel, in some ways, the Lamplighters that we did last month was a bit like that. It was
Oh, well, I know I enjoyed the Lamplighters. I didn't come last thing, but I actually read that book and I enjoyed that. But it's not the same because you didn't have 5. You had, was it about 4 different characters in that, and you could go back and it all joined together. This was one after the other, and they were all different. So no. And I thought they were all dead at one point. I thought, none of these people are alive. They can't possibly be alive. We're actually exploring the thoughts of dead people here, but that isn't the case.
Right. Come on then, Anne. You asked the question.
I did, didn't I? Yeah. Well, I mean, I enjoyed it actually, and I didn't have trouble. I didn't have trouble following it. I don't think I did anyway. There are. I mean, there are a lot of, there's only, in one sense, there's only really 6, isn't there? There's 6 households or lodges or chalets or whatever they're called. And you get 2 people from each one. So when you get into the second half of the book, you're going back to a situation that you've been in before, but another person out of it. So it's not, in one sense, it's not 12, it's 6. But I mean, that is a lot of people. But I mean, I was fine. Like Ian, I adjusted. This is a different style, and I thought there were just so many kind of clever and appropriate insights into the way people's minds were working. Different people at different stages in their life, and with different perspectives on things. And slowly, I thought the plot was developing, with little bits here and there, and there is a great sense of foreboding, what's going to be the thing that happens at the end, which of course you do get to the fire at the end. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great book.
Well, there we are.
All right.
I knew that would be the case.
Did you think the end was a bit abrupt though? Did it just sort of?
Very.
Yeah, and I would have wanted a little bit more really. It was just. All right, so the place is on fire, and then it finished, and didn't seem to round anything off, or we got all these other little mysteries, like the girl, the teenager disappearing to this rather dodgy sounding tent, and we were all kind of worried for her welfare for quite a lot of the story, and I assume it was this guy from the tent who just turned up with an axe at the end. And, I just thought, oh God, it's finished. And I just felt, there's I could do with a bit more of it, really. Just
it's a snapshot, isn't it? It's a kind of, you know, one day snapshot. They start really early in the morning with just the running at 5 o'clock or something, and they end up with the evening with the party, and then, you know,
that's it, yeah.
happens. And that's it. It's a snapshot, and that's what it is. And in a sense, if you went on to ramifications after that, it would have gone outside the concept of the novel. Although I agree, one can put one's own ideas of what might happen.
Yeah.
The other Claire, who you introduced, what did you think of it? Because you've not said it. I noticed.
I was okay with the way it was written. I kind of adjusted, like you say, and went with it. But it's the way it made me feel that I kind of most chapters left me feeling a bit stressed for the particular, like the girl going off with the man in the tent, or the boy in the kayak, and or the elderly gentleman driving too fast. You know, it was all kind of like left. Even the jogger, I thought at the start, oh God, somebody's going to attack her, you know. And
I thought she died.
Left me.
Going to have a heart attack,
I thought she'd actually had the heart attack, That's what made me think, well, if she's had the heart attack, the little girl has been attacked. Was it she Ukrainian or Romanian or something?
Well, they couldn't seem to decide between them. It was actually East European.
Yeah, as something happened to her. And I'm thinking, oh, is this all about dead people?
I think
but do you read a book to get stressed?
Well, this is
the answer is no.
Yeah. I always, at the end of a book, I always think to myself, would I recommend this to a friend? And I don't think I would, because I didn't at any point feel relaxed. I was totally like, oh, something's going to happen on the next page, and you know, and it didn't until the very end. And then I thought the ending was, and she doesn't explicitly say what happens. You're just left with this sort of scream, aren't you, or sort of some sort of sound. But it just left me feeling like, oh my God. It's horrible. Well, if it's what I think it is, it's horrible. And it kind of, I thought, I didn't enjoy that. I'm not going to give that to somebody else to read.
I suppose it was also quite an interesting examination of Brits on holiday.
Yeah, that was true.
It clearly wasn't sponsored by the Scottish Tourist Board either. You know, I've been to Scotland and it's rained, so I can relate to that. But it was a bit unrelenting.
Did anyone pick up on the fact that it was based on a poem? Because I started to do some research.
Oh, right. No, I didn't.
And there was a poem, because I was trying to work out why I was reading this. And is there some poem by somebody about Summerwater or something?
Summerwater, yeah.
Summerwater, yes. Yeah. I am right in thinking that.
And for me, the novel itself mirrors the legend, because it's the legend speaks of a pilgrim who arrives in a village and you know, seeks nourishment, and apart from one cottager, he is turned away, he's rebuffed. So as he leaves the village, he places a curse, and the village is flooded, apart from this one cottage. So I equated that to the log cabins almost being an isolated village and being flooded by the rain. And for me, I considered the view that the rain was, in a sense, a protagonist, because it infiltrated everything, obviously, literally. But it was the dreary monotony of the rain. For me, it was threatening. It was like a predator. So maybe I read it on a totally different level. I'm not sure, but
yeah. Did you feel that the characters, some of them were a little bit cliched? You know, the sort of the depressed and possibly agoraphobic housewife, the Alzheimer's character. You know, I just felt some of them, although they were quite well drawn, it was just like, okay, who should we have in hut 5? You know, what particular problems and issues can we attach to this hut? And you know, there didn't seem to be a normal. I think the most normal person was Justine, and I just felt, you know, there wasn't, they all had to have a label, and that just made it seem a little bit contrived, really.
Mm. I think that's right. I think, you know, it was quite contrived, but I think that was deliberate. I don't think it sort of accidentally contrived when it was meant not to be.
Mm.
I think that fits in with the structure and the whole way she was doing it. And so I mean, I agree it was, but I think that was part of the intention.
Yeah, I accept
that. I found the characters authentic, because when we think of our own lives, and, you know, we're surrounded by neighbours, and we may know them a little, we may know them very well, but we never know the real person within, do we? You know, everyone in a sense is shrouded in a bit of a mystery.
So you could equally put it in a housing estate and written the book. It didn't have to be in a set of holiday chalets, did it? It could be anywhere, really.
Although they were complete
flats.
They were complete strangers, weren't they? They weren't neighbours. So I think that was the point of it, really. All these people coming together at that particular time in that particular location. So it was, you know, it was like a very sort of artificial, unique situation, rather than where in a housing estate some neighbours would know each other quite well, and they might have lived next door to each other for years. And this
do you think that added anything to the book? Because, to be honest with me, the fact that they didn't know each other didn't play any significance in it, really.
But did it not add to the theme of isolation?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know there was a theme of isolation. I missed out on that completely.
Yeah, well, that's my interpretation. I'm not.
The only thing I thought was this theme of doom and gloom, and the doom and gloom was something must be going to happen to them, and then I suddenly thought, oh, has it already happened? Are they dead?
Yeah, I think Terry's right. You know, the idea that they couldn't even get a phone signal, never mind
Yeah.
You know, it was a very sort of claustrophobic atmosphere, and you know, quite honestly, if I was there, I would have just packed up and gone home. But you know, they spent quite a lot of money hiring these huts, and they obviously wanted to stick it out, as Brits do on holiday.
There's definitely characters characters' thoughts I could relate to, and what I think there's the parents trying to entertain the children in the house, and just it's, you know, if you've had children, you've got children.
I must admit, it did take me back to the time I spent in a log cabin in Norway, where you couldn't get a signal, and it rained, and it was Norwegian TV. On a Saturday night, on a Saturday night, the height of their thing was watching some woodworking program or something. This was one of their top channels. So it did remind me of that.
You could have been in that story, Claire. You could have been in one of those huts.
Yeah, years ago. But certainly, I would not recommend that author to somebody. However, I'm sure there are certain people who, different personality, would really enjoy the book. And I think it's, you know, it's just one of these things, isn't it?
Did
we come to book clubs to hear different views on books?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Yeah.
Did I know I sort of mentioned that I felt a sense of sort of dread through most of it, but there was an odd bit that made me laugh, actually. And I wondered if there's any highlights that you had, that, you know, there's a passage that you thought, actually, that was quite funny, or that was quite real. And the one I was thinking of was, I think it's Justine, or running Mummy, I think, is she's watching some pornography on her phone, and he's sort of milling about in the background, and it's all these sort of paranoid thoughts about it. And that for me was quite funny. It was a bit of a break, actually, from the rest of the tension.
Yeah. And I thought the teenagers added quite a lot to it as well. They're sort of stuck with mum and dad in a hut in the rain, you know. You can relate to that.
And the mum who just got the child wrapped up in its puddle suit. and the child decides it wants to go to the toilet. I laughed out loud at that bit.
Well, is there any more views on it before we can all have a go round and rate it? I guess I think we've heard Claire's rating, but you might have changed your mind. You never know. Is there any more sort of questions or views that you wanted to talk about it?
Not really.
No. Okay. I'll start with the rating then. I think I'd give it 3 out of 5. I genuinely think she writes really well and beautifully. I think she's very, it's very skillful writing, but I don't like the way she made me feel. I wish she'd write. I've read Ghost Wall as well, and that did the same thing to me. And I wish she'd write something a bit more uplifting personally. But that's. I actually think she's very talented though, and her writing skills very good. But yeah, Terri, what's your rating then or view on it?
Well, even though I found the lack of paragraphs most irksome, I'm going to give it 4 because I found it to be a very deep novel, but I would hesitate to recommend it. I think it's one of those books where you have to be quite cautious. It's not for everybody, but I enjoyed it.
Ian, any?
Yeah, I think I would give it a 3 because of the writing. I probably wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't go out of my way to recommend it. But I was thinking of looking at another of her books, although you slightly put me off that now, Claire. So yeah, probably wouldn't recommend. But I think 3 is. I think it's worth a 3.
Anne, what's your thoughts?
Oh, I'm going to give it 5 because I loved it. Sorry. And would I recommend it? Generally, yes. I mean, maybe perhaps might be 1 or 2 people I wouldn't recommend it to, but yeah, I mean, I would recommend it to the other book club I'm in, and yeah. You're going to get a real divergence of numbers here.
I was just wondering, yeah. And Claire, what's your?
Well, I'm struggling to give it 1. I could give it 0. And yeah, okay, she writes well, but lots of people do. To be an author, you've got to do more than write well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all I'm going to say. 1.
Brilliant. Yeah. Anything else before we go? I think we've wrapped it up quite well. But any afterthoughts?
No, not really.
No. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone. It's been good fun. I enjoyed it today. Really
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's it.